Hello everybody, shall we start? Okay, I would like to introduce you Balint Kleri from Commerce Guys. He's our special guest today here at DrupalCamp Mures 2013. And please welcome his presentation about Curio babies and shifted product.
Hey everyone, I hope you're fine. After last night, I definitely had a very nice time. So, Curio babies and shifted product. You might be wondering, where does that goofy session title come from? So, before I start, let me be clear about something. And let me ask you, how many of you guys have babies? Okay, a few of you. So, please do not hurt them. I didn't mean that. So, if you want to know what I meant with the session title, I'm going to tell you at the very end of the session. So, I hope you will bear with me. I have given you at least one incentive to do so, and I will do my best to give you more. So, just a few words about my past. I was a Google Summer of Code student 2 years ago. Then I was hired by Node1, which became Crowd later. And I worked in Sweden for a brief 1 year. And here is my present. I work at Commerce Guys. I work in the product team. And Indiviso is a startup I funded with 2 partners. And we started working together nearly a year ago. And we have a product which is software for HR recruiters. And we are aiming for easing the HR selection process, the hiring process. So we would like to give a really nice tool to the HR recruiters to pick the right people to their organization. And we implemented a video interview platform for that, and we give a lot of help through our software for the recruiters to pick the right questions to ask. And when they have the right questions in place, the applicants can do a video recording basically, and the HR recruiters can evaluate that. So let me show you an imaginary interview. What you will see is an applicant to a job which is called Indiviso Experience Manager.
Indiviso is a new European startup that revolutionizes the HR selection process. It combines several aspects of HR experience and industry into one easy-to-use, streamlined video interview platform. Advanced IT allows for an integrated approach to the interview process using internet-based video interviews and a database of specifically tailored questions. Each company can create their own format and gear each question towards specific qualities or position requirements that they're searching for. And this ensures that they get quality candidates. Communication and administrative correspondence are also automated, so it saves time and energy and ultimately expenses.
So this was Peter, and this is the video that the HR professional can develop later on. He did quite good, right? So how this all started, and I'm not going to talk more about Indiviso, but how it started. Sorry. Which one? Okay, so I met with 2 great people. This is how it started, and those 2 people are my partners. And I would like to stress the importance of working with the right people when you're working on a product. Actually, it's not only for product development. Whatever you do, I think the key is to work with the right people. Because people have power, and inspiration has power. And if you can inspire each other, that's just golden. And when you have positive energies together, when you go into a room and you start using the whiteboard and just drawing ideas, that can be really, really valuable. And the beauty in mixture of different people, different areas, different professions. You know, my partners are HR specialists. So it's really nice when you get to work with people who are good at something else than you are. And we also have a rule. When we hire anyone, because we had to hire, for instance, a graphic designer to design this spectacular logo that we have because we love it. So when we had to hire that guy, for instance, we had only one rule. And of course, he had to be good in designing. But the most important is that we don't work with people who are not positive. We only work with positive people. We only work with happy people. That's really just number one rule of our hiring process, if I can say that. So I realized this maybe a year ago, how important it is to have positive energies. So you always have to learn from people. When you work with good people, then you can learn from them. And it's really valuable to listen to people, whatever people you meet with. And I'm very lucky to work with those kind of people. And more importantly, you have to learn about people. Because people are your customers, and you build your products, your services for people. So you really have to do what they really want. Keep this in mind when you develop a software or you design user interfaces or anything. Because people are your customers and you're working for them. And when you start learning about people, you can realize so many interesting things. And my favorite realization, my favorite conclusion, is that people do not like choices. It's really important. When you offer them multiple choices, they don't actually want that. So think about it. When you go to a fast food restaurant, what happens? Well, it usually happens that you ask for a burger, and then they start asking questions about you. And I always get irritated, like, come on, just give me my burger. I don't want to be asked. If I'd ask for a meal, don't ask me if it can be large. I don't care. Just give me my food because I'm hungry. And why don't they do that by default? Like, sure, give me the large one. I don't care. And that's what people think. They just want their food as soon as possible, and they don't want to reply thousands of questions. And that's actually good news for you, if you realize that. Because when you build a software, each feature has a complexity. The complexity has a cost. So when you think about providing multiple choices to your users, you really have to keep this in mind. Complexity has a huge cost. And you want to lower your costs, of course. So even when you think it's just a small feature, the reality is often, or most likely, or always different. The estimated cost of the small feature, look at the picture, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Then you have the actual cost under the water. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a service, software, whatever, and then you allow your users to write reviews. And you have a text area. Pretty simple, right? And then you realize that how cool would it be to let the users give their reviews on Twitter? But as a first step, let's not think about the actual implementation. As a first step, we just like to limit the number of characters in the text area so that it fits the 140 characters, which is standard for Twitter. And then, you know, your users can get to use it. So yeah, here is the task. One text area, and I want to limit the number of characters which the users can enter. Can someone give me an estimation for that task? So, an experienced developer, there's a text area, and only 140 characters are allowed to be entered. Anyone, an estimation for that? A time estimation?
Half an hour. 4 hours.
4
Sorry.
hours.
4 hours.
4 hours. So I'm going to ask you questions now. So, what happens if the user entered more than 140 characters? Do we crop the message, or do we display an error message? Crop. Okay. So isn't your user will be irritated, right? So let's go with the error message. All right.
Let's not allow him to enter more.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just continue. Okay. So let's stick with the error message. So the user enters more, and then we display an error message when they submit the form, right? Okay. Who's gonna design the error message if we don't have a design for that already? Who's gonna write the text for the error message? Because of course our communication has to be really smooth. So somehow we need to explain to the user what's going on. So we have the error message. And yeah, we have to design it. Do we have a style? Yeah, we sort out those questions. But wait a second, are we doing this only on the server side? So no, of course, we don't want them to enter more. So yeah, let's do it on the client side. Who's gonna write the JavaScript for that? Of course, it's a simple question. Who is going to test the JavaScript in all our targeted browsers? Yeah, let's say that we sort it out. Now our users still get irritated because they don't know when they reach the 140 characters. Okay, so let's give them a character counter, right? That's obviously needed. A character counter. Who is going to write the JavaScript for the character counter again? Of course, there are tons of implementations out there on the internet. Who's going to pick the right one? And again, who's going to test it in all the browsers? And, oh yes, how is it going to look like? Do we have a design for that? Who's going to design that? And then, of course, when we are about to reach the 140 characters, of course the design should change a little bit. At least it should switch to red or whatever. Okay, who's going to decide that? Yeah, and even when we sorted out all of these, let's say we already have reviews in our system. And what do we do with those? Users will think that, okay, I cannot enter a long review, but the other guy just did, like a few weeks ago. So who is going to explain to them? And of course, we would like to update all of our documentation, the APIs. And let's say we have an iOS and Android application, of course we need to update those as well. And then maybe you already have a really nice deployment strategy in place, and the deployment can go smooth. But before that, you have to implement a lot of tests so that your quality assurance process still works. So, 4 hours, is that covered in this 4 hours? I don't think so. I don't think so. This is a lot of tasks. So there are no small changes. When you're doing things properly, small change, forget this word, it doesn't exist. Product strategy means saying no. And writing a line of code is rarely the big cost in engineering. Everyone can write code, that's simple. The understanding, the communication, and the maintenance cost you a lot of money, not the actual implementation. And often developers like to deliver really nice code, really abstract code, really nice implementation. And they think there is a value in it. But actually, there is no value in abstraction. You don't have to build things which scale. Because the more simple the code is, the more valuable it is for your organization. Because it's really simple to maintain. Everyone can understand simple code. You don't have to write complex stuff. Your organization will, yes, what you would like to deliver is simple code, and that's it. And this will often be unsatisfying for people's egos, engineers' egos. But the best engineers have nothing to prove, so they should really stick to the simple solutions. And let's play with this thought a little bit more. Let's say that this change was really 4 hours, or you figure out something and it's really just a small change, and it can be done really easily. But the scope of the work should never be the reason to include a new feature in your product. It doesn't matter how much time and effort it is to implement. What matters is that what your users will think. So again, the scope of work should never be the reason to include that feature. Think about iOS and Android. And no, I'm not gonna start the debate. I've done that so many times, so I'm not gonna get into that topic again. By the way, I have an Android device and an iOS device as well, so I can appreciate both works. But let's face it, people love iOS more than they do Android. And that's the reason is very simple. In iOS, a feature is included when it's needed. In Android, a feature is included when it can be included. And that's a really different mindset. And as I said, I can appreciate both words, but the reality is that people like iOS more. And of course, we can fight over the statistics here, but that's really the reality. So, again, learn about people. You really have to know what they think and how they want to use your product. And the best way to do so is to release as soon as possible. As soon as you have anything, release it. Just think about the actual meaning of the word release. It means letting something go. That simple it is. And again, learn about people, learn about your users, and release early. Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn. He said, if you're not embarrassed by your first product release, your release too late. So think about it a little bit. Release as soon as you have something, and fail fast, because you're gonna fail. That's natural. But fail fast, and then don't fail again for the same reason. Adjust, and change something. I would like to refer to babies again. No killing, no. So think about the process when they learn walking. How does that look? They try it, and then they fall. But then they stand up again, and then they try it again and again, and in the end they will succeed. And no one's going to laugh at them when they fall the first time, because it's just so natural. So, releasing as early as possible is key in product development. And really, timing is everything. And I don't really have a scientific explanation for that, but when you feel like, when you don't really have an urgent need to release, this is what you're thinking, but actually you should do that anyway. So let me give you an example. A week ago, I was in Amsterdam in a conference called HR Tech Europe, which is the biggest human resources technology conference in Europe. And we got invited. Indiviso got invited to that conference, and we had no idea how and why. So here's what happened. We had been working on our website for a long time, and I was not happy with it at all. But then we decided to launch it anyway. And then we did. And after we did, a few hours after that, we got a phone call from the organizers of this event. And they called us and they asked us if we want to go. And I asked them, okay, but how do you know about us? And they said they just performed a search in Google and our name came up. And that was really, really something fantastic. We launched our website and we decided not to wait with it. I felt terrible, you know, because my friends were asking me, hey dude, this website doesn't look good on my iPhone. What is wrong with you? Why did you launch this? And I said, well, we launched it and it was the best decision we have ever made. Really, because we got invited to this conference and that gave us a lot, like business connections, inspiration. I can't really tell you how important it was. So we just listened to our guts and we released the website and it was great. And then we did some other thing. We went to this conference and we decided to do demonstrations about the product to as much people as we can. The product is not really ready. So what we did, we faked a lot of interfaces. And we showed them, yeah, this is how the evaluation form looks. It was just HTML code, it didn't work. But they loved it. They loved it. They didn't ask me what happens when I click on submit because it was so obvious. So I just showed them, yeah, this is the evaluation form. And it was so valuable because we got a lot of feedback about it. And then now we can incorporate that feedback. And we didn't spend a lot of time and money to develop that evaluation form, but now we can really develop the good thing because we got feedback. So this is all about feedback from your customer. And, you know, just fake it until you make it. But it's naturally hard. Releasing something to the wide, to the public, and showing a stranger to a product you've been working on, and you know that it's not perfect, it's never perfect. But it's naturally really hard, and you have a lot of excuses. Well, okay, do not launch your website because it doesn't look good on my iPhone, etc., etc. And also, when you think that this is about perfectionism is nothing, it's just an excuse. So write it on the list of your excuses and throw it into the bin. Because really it doesn't matter, just you have to release it. But anyways, I was just saying that it's naturally hard, and actually there is a scientific reason for that. And let me give you a small biology lesson. Think about a chicken. A chicken has what we call a lizard brain. Have you heard about the lizard brain? Alright, cool. I'm gonna tell you about it. So the lizard brain has one function. It is hungry, scared, selfish, and horny. That's its job. Wild animals are called wild because they have a lizard brain. And all they care about in any given moment is, how am I going to survive? How am I going to have kids? Get me out of here. So it turns out we also have a lizard brain. It's there. It's the bottom layer of our brain. Of course, we developed a few more layers, but it is there. The lizard brain is there. And damn, it speaks up. And it says, what are you doing? You're not safe. You're not being safe. Do not do that. They're going to laugh at you. This is what it's saying, because that's its job. It's just doing its job. And you have to control it. Because if you listen to your lizard brain, then you will never release anything. Then actually you will never do anything valuable if you cannot quiet your lizard brain. And yeah, the closer you get to releasing something, the bigger the resistance is. Your lizard brain is shouting, and if you listen to it, as I said, you're screwed. So let me ask you something. How many of you are making money by being creative? How many of you, yeah, so 2%, so you are saying that you are making money by being creative. I'm so sorry, but you're wrong. What you do for a living is not be creative. What you do is ship. You're not gonna get paid just because you're creative. It's not. You have to ship something. And Do you like Harry Potter? Well, I haven't read it, but it's a good example at this point anyway. So Harry Potter books, they sold more than 400 million copies. 400 million. And they became the best-selling book in the history. So we can say that J.K. Rowling is the most creative writer on earth. That's just wrong. It's not true. She's not the most creative writer on earth. She shipped that book. She sat down and she wrote that thing. And she finished it and she released it. And that's how she got rich. Not by being creative. No. You have to ship. That's the key. And I can give you an advice on how to ship in time, on time, and on budget. Because you might think that shipping on time and on budget is really hard, right? So I can tell you how simple it is. When you run out of money, run out of time, you ship. And then you ship on time and on budget. That's simple it is. And you don't have to be more creative. What you need to do is quieten your lizard brain. That's the key. So let's say that you ship, actually ship. So how do you decide what to ship? It's simple math. What you ship is business value, and business value translates to revenue, money for you. So you always have to think about business value. And so business value equals benefit divided by time. And if you want to increase the business value, it's just simple math. Either you increase the benefit, or decrease the time, or you decrease the benefit, but decrease the time even more, or increase the time and increase benefit even more. It's that simple. And delivering business value requires a little bit of different developer mindset. Let's consider this task. This is the description of the exact same task. Two descriptions. So install and configure entity forms module. That's task A. Sorry, description A. And the description B is allow users to give feedback. And this is basically the same. And it doesn't matter which module you install and how you configure it. What matters is that you want to allow your users to give feedback on your website. That's what gives you business value. And let me ask you something. I am a Drupal developer and doing a presentation on a DrupalCamp. How many times you have heard me mentioning Drupal throughout this presentation? Except a few last seconds. Zero. I did not mention Drupal. That's because Drupal is just a tool. And it doesn't matter what you use for delivering business value. And of course, I think it is the best tool to deliver business value because Indiviso, the product, is built with Drupal, and I've been working with Drupal exclusively for a few years now. So I think it is the best tool, but I don't think it matters. It's just something that you use to deliver business value, and that's a different mindset. And you know, if I encounter a task where Drupal is not the best fit, I'm not going to be afraid of doing something else, using Symfony, Node.js, whatever. It doesn't matter, it's just a tool. So when you do a project, you would like to work in a way which delivers business value, and that work has two angles. The first angle is effectiveness, and the second one is efficiency. And what do they mean? So, efficiency is doing things right, and effectiveness is doing the right things. And developers tend to have the mindset of being efficient, They want to do things right. They want to deliver awesome, perfect code. They want to do it right. But they might not be doing the right things. So what you would like to do is to stay in the middle. And this is how you can be successful. You cannot afford to deliver top quality code all the time. And I'm sorry for saying that, but I've been there. Imagine a demonstration possibility is coming up for you and you want to demonstrate your project and you have to complete something because your customer is interested in seeing what you got. Then maybe you get into the mode when you just get things done, but you have to prioritize because maybe I'm delivering not so nice looking code today, doing an awesome demonstration tomorrow, and 2 days later, I will go back and clean up that code. And that's really important to know what the priority is. And I really do not want to mention the cliche, perfect is the enemy of done, but here I am, I just said it. But it is really true. So you always have to prioritize. And when you do prioritization, and you think about features, what you would like to deliver, this is a really neat tool to do this prioritization right. So let's say you have a backlog with tasks that you want to do, and you want to decide what to do first. So let me show you this tool. So we have this axis here, and I put sizes, labels on the axis. So extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large. And then we have the other axis, and the other axis means business value. And as I said before, business value translates to revenue. So I use the dollar signs there. So you pick one task from your backlog, and then you size it. Okay, so let's say it's a large task, and it gives you not so much business value. Okay, so place that here. And then we have another, which is a very large task. It actually gives you a lot of business value. So place that there, and then we have 2 more. And then now you know how to start working with it, because the first one obviously will be the smallest one, which gives you relatively good business value. So that's what you want to start with. And then the second one will be another small one, but it gives you even more business value. So that's what you would like to continue with. And then, of course, you should focus on the one which is really big, but it gives you a lot of business value. And then you tackle this large one in the end. So let's say you did this prioritization and you put a lot of thoughts into what to deliver, and you think you deliver business value, but it's not happening. Your users will not engage. They will not use your product or that feature, that specific feature in your product. So you fail. And it happens. So what's next? You should be prepared to change directions. And again, referring to the babies, that's what they do. They fall when they learn walking, but then they try it again and again, and they adjust, and eventually they succeed. And so they just start over after each fall. And for me, this is what really Agile means. For me, Agile doesn't mean that we work in sprints and we do Scrum and everyone stands out. Those are just, tools to implement this methodology. But for me, being able to change directions rapidly, that's what Agile means. And if it turns out that you delivered something which is not widely used, you shouldn't be afraid of completely removing it. Remember the iceberg example. You have complexity cost and you would like to lower it. So if you can remove something, that's good for you, because in the long run, you don't have to pay for the complexity. So actually, those are good news. And you know, sometimes you deliver a product and you completely fail with it. You shouldn't even be afraid of starting a completely new direction. So let me tell you a story. Two guys called Evan Williams and Biz Stone, they built a service which was called Audio. That was a service for aggregating podcasts from RSS feeds and publishing them. So this was called Audio, this podcasting service. And then Apple did iTunes. Obviously what happened, people used iTunes and Audio was dead. And what they did, they changed direction. And they met with a third guy called Jack Dorsey. And they created a new service. They delivered a completely new product. And that product is called Twitter. So their first product that they delivered, it was killed, it was dead. And then they did another one, which became really successful. And it's really hard to explain this after my previous example, but you shouldn't be afraid of your competitors. But you know, it's like the funny quote. I don't know where I heard that, but this quote says, "You should always be yourself, except when you can be Batman, because then you should always be Batman." So this is like similar. You shouldn't be afraid of your competitors. But well, if it's Apple, then you might have a bit of a reason to be afraid. But that's an extreme example. But in the normal life, often if you have a competitor, it's good. It validates your business. It actually tells you that what you're doing is good. Other people has also thought about this. So this is just good. But you shouldn't be afraid of the competitors. What you should be, you should only focus on your product, because it's not good enough yet. It's never good enough yet. That's what you should be thinking, and not really listening to your competitors and being afraid of them. But here's one advice. If you're entering into a market, and there's a market leader on the market, you cannot beat the market leader by doing the thing that the market leader does better. You cannot beat them. But you can beat them by doing something which they cannot do. That's a really nice thing to think about. So the video interview market within Viso, of course there's a market, and there is a market leader, a huge American company with huge venture capital, and they have a really cool product. But we think we can do something else that they cannot do. We are not better at the video interview solution. Of course, technology-wise, we are nowhere compared to them. But we have other values, and that's what really matters. So, let me give you just one last advice, and I will not comment on it. I think it's explanatory. This is an advice from Adam Savage. Work like your life depends on it. And I'm open for questions. All right, so no questions? Oh, there's a few. What am I?
Curious if you have a working demo for individual.
I do, and I'm happy to show that after the session.
Perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A great presentation, but I do have a question. I mean, this sounds so awesome, but what happens when you grow, or how you plan to grow that individual startup? Because it's currently in the startup phase, if I recall correctly. But what are your plans? How can you keep this a really agile mentality that's lean, easy to change direction. When you start to grow, when you are not underdoing your competition anymore and doing things differently, when you are the biggest dog in the pen, so when you will scale up, what's your strategy for that?
Yeah, great question. So for a startup, there are 3 ways to grow. One is the organic way. That's what we chose. We don't have investors. We do everything from our own. And we don't use venture capital or anything. Or option B, you can use venture capital and then you grow really, really quickly. But our fear is what you just said. If you grow really big and you use venture capital, your investors are in charge of your directions. And that's what our biggest fear is. So we don't want to involve investors yet. We might do in the future, but for now, we would like to try this, let's say, alone. But there is a third way, which can be the most interesting for us, is when there is someone on a related market, let's say a headhunting market, and there is a big international company, and they are doing headhunting for really big corporations. And that's a really good way to partner with them, and they can finance your development, and then they can use and they can somewhat own your product, but not entirely like you did with venture capital money. So I'm not sure if this entirely answers your question, probably not, but when we grow really big, I think I need to learn about that and come back maybe a year later or two years later and talk about that, because honestly, I could make up something right now, but I don't know the answer.
Well, I hope it will be sooner than later, so we shall see that.
Yeah, you can use mine.
Okay, so you like Apple products, would you advise Apple to release early, or do you think they should benefit from it?
So, yeah, Apple products. It doesn't seem like so, but they actually do release very early. Think about the first iOS release. It wasn't even called iOS. It was, I don't know how it was called, but the iOS name came later. But on the first iPhone operating system, there was no copy-paste functionality. They decided to go without the copy-paste functionality. And the world was laughing at them. But in fact, they were not ready to release a perfect solution for that. And yes, they are in a position when they can afford to release something which is perfect. So they are already on the market. They are market leaders. They have customers. And they can spend a bunch of money on research and development. But actually like the idea. They were not ready to release the copy-paste functionality, so they didn't. But they released the whole software, and they just cut out the copy-paste. So in my mind, that's almost like releasing really early, and yes, on the Apple way.
I have a question. You mentioned that you are going to explain the title of your presentation at the end.
That's right. That's right. But I was going to wrap up after the questions. So yeah, after the question, I will give you an explanation.
Hi. So, what does a Drupal developer need in order to become an entrepreneur? Like, who are your partners? What is missing from the equation for a Drupal developer?
I think, remember that slide when I showed the same task with 2 descriptions? So I think when you prefer the second description, which was saying allowing your customers to give reviews, you prefer that, I think then you're ready to be an entrepreneur, because then you are really in the mindset of what your customer needs. And I think that's really the first step. It's the biggest one, but the most important step.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
What steps did you do to validate your startup ideas?
I'm sorry,
What steps did you do to validate your startup ideas? You need to validate the startup.
Yeah, that's right. We released really, really early. That's the short answer, but I can give you a longer one. So I'm really proud of this. The product was really, really not ready, like not even close to be ready. But the video recording functionality was working. And we have a client, Air France KLM, and they wanted to try the software out. And then we told them that, okay, you can try it out. We can record interviews, but the user interface for evaluating interviews doesn't exist yet. They said, okay, let's do that. And it was amazing because we recorded a lot of interviews, and then for the evaluation, you know what we used? We used spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, which sounds kind of nasty, but then I had a full picture of what an evaluation process should look like. Because the spreadsheet was made in a way they want to use it. So later on, I implemented the same functionality for the evaluation. And that was a really cool experience. And also we discovered a lot of bugs in the video recording functionality. And you know, it was really nice. It was a pro bono project for Air France, and they were aware of the fact that the software is not perfect yet, and they were okay with that. They actually liked the idea of being involved in the process so early, and they can be kind of in charge of which direction we continue. So that's how. That was the most important step, at least.
Okay, I have a question. Not everybody here is a final client. A lot of us actually work for different clients. So my question is, do you have some advice on convincing the final client to release early? Because some of them are not really in this mindset, let's say.
Yeah, I think if you can explain them the values of releasing early, that could help. But also, you have to be really good at convincing them. Like, really, really good. At the Age of Tech conference, the closing session was done by a guy called Daniel Pink. And look at his TED presentation. It's one of the most viewed presentations on TED. It's really cool. And he was saying that, he was asking the audience, who is a salesman here? Who is considered to be a salesman by his job? Exactly. Everybody is a salesman. Everybody. Because selling is convincing someone to give up something that they like. In many cases, that's money. But in many other cases, it's just, you know, convincing them about an idea. And I think I don't have more to add that.
Okay, just please repeat the name of that guy. I didn't note that.
Dan, D-A-N, Pink.
Okay, thanks.
Really cool presentation. So I think we have time for one more question, then I need to wrap up.
You mentioned how important it is to work with the right people. And I'm curious for a startup, what is the minimum number of people to be involved and on what should they be good?
Well, we are 3 people, and this actually feels like the perfect number of doing this, but I don't think there are rules for this. Just work with people that you like, work with people that you enjoy being with, and work with people who are good at doing something, and then you should be fine. It's that simple. Alright, so just wrapping this up, I think this answer was my first point on wrapping it up. Work with the right people, learn from people, learn about people, learn about your users, and realize that they don't want choices, and keep the complexity cost down, because that's what's really valuable for you. And listen to your users and deliver what they need. And do not be afraid of cutting your features. And that's what Killing Babe is about. It's a journalism slang. So when a journalist writes an article, but it became too long for print because there's not enough space on the newspaper, they have to cut it. And that's what they call killing your babies. And that's what you should not be afraid to do so. Thank you for it.